Hi, it's Sophie from the future. I just wanted to state that first off, does this channel look like it's being sponsored by anybody? I'd have way more money if I was affiliated with an official publishing house. Second, all opinions on this review series are my own. Thanks for understanding. Hello, welcome to Precontation Points. I know that I'm technically in the middle of fury, but I promise that this madness has some method to it. I want to preface this review by saying that while I'm known for reviewing bad books, I'm making zero promises about Vivid. This is because Vivid has literally been released on the same day that I started reading it. I want Vivid to be a good book. To be fair, I want all books to be better than their worst reviews warn of. And as I watch Ashley's promos for her book, I can't help but get excited for it. But I'm trying to keep my expectations realistic here. Ashley, if you're watching this is all your brother's idea. Bye. Anyway, let's get started. Vivid by Ashley Bustamante. Chapter 1. We open on our unnamed main character sitting alone in the woods about to practice this book's signature color magic. She's practicing red magic, and the cautionary words blur together, a deluge of red flags and flashing lights. Is this a pun? I sure hope that this was intentional wordings on Ashley's part. Our unnamed main character is worried about keeping a group of people called mentalists out from her mind, and I get that this is a good descriptor for people whom I'm guessing are building up to use mind-based magics, but at the same time, the first thing that pops into my mind when I hear mentalists is that detective series that our parents used to like. You know what I'm talking about. Like, are you sure that this is the name you want to call them? Are you sure? Anyway, so she's trying to come up with some revolutionary red magic to keep the mentalists away, despite that little voice inside of her head telling her that there are no more mentalists. She tries to the point where she seems to overextend herself and she passes out. When she comes to, she decides that maybe she should have listened to the warnings in the book and decides to leave. However, as she's going, she remembers her books. Like, seriously, why do you go out into the middle of the forest with all of your things, spread them out, and then just forget about them? Who does that? But as she turns to go fetch her things, she runs into a man. He seems to take in her school uniform and asks if she's a student at something called Prism. I can only assume that is the name of the school. She agrees and tells him where it is when prompted. He warns her not to talk to strangers before he leaves in the opposite direction from the school. Still, unnamed main character is a little disturbed by this encounter and wonders if she should report it, but then dismisses the idea. She runs back to the school where she tries to set herself right by combing the leaves from her hair and brushing dirt from her uniform skirt. But then she feels a wave of offness and we get a clunky mini info dump about the character's name, Ava Locke, her age, 17, by way of her trying to ground herself. She stresses for a moment about the unintended negative side effects of magic gone wrong, but decides that if she doesn't feel better in a few minutes, she'll go to see the school healer. As she goes further into the school, she comes across a group of other students. They're showing off, and one of the girls wants Ava to one-up all of them. Ava refuses, first with the reminder of the school rules, and then the excuse of needing to get ready for a test. She goes to the testing room, but still feels off. Why did I think it was a good idea to mess around before a test? I don't know, babe. You tell me. Anyway, the teacher pins a piece of paper against the wall, which is a list of people who will be fighting against during this test. Eva's kind of startled that her partner is the son of the couple she lives with, Blake, who is like a brother to her. He practices blue magic. The other students come in and the classmates rib Blake for being up against Ava, saying he's going to lose. The narration then pauses briefly to explain a little bit more about how the color magic works. They can draw from anything that is their color. All of the students have gems with their color that are more powerful than just anything that happens to be blue or red. The teacher sets the rule that they're only allowed to draw upon either their gem or one ball during this matchup, and to draw upon anything else will automatically fail them. Ava and Blake's fight is first, which is great, because it's really tedious whenever they're like fifth or whatever. Is it realistic? Yes, but it makes for bad storytelling unless you have a good reason for the characters to stand around for a good half hour before it's their turn. They face off against one another and Blake is surprised that Ava doesn't seem to want to mess around, so when the teacher tells him to start, he immediately chucks a pair of scissors at her with his magic. However, right off the bat, Blake has an immediate advantage over her. His magic lies in literally throwing things, whereas Ava's powers are more internal. Sure, she has super strength, but that's not going to be really useful when he telepathically beats her with a heavy textbook. This goes on for a while before Blake literally uses his magic to remove Ava's red gem pendant, which she calls cheating, but honestly, if this was a real fight, does she think that her opponent wouldn't play dirty to win? Blake continues to pelt Ava with various things from the classroom, which has a neutral effect on Ava because she just punches them out of the sky before they can hurt her. Blake then makes a giant spider using all of his power, and this proves to be too much for Eva. She takes a hit and rolls behind some desks to take a moment, both to recover but also to draw on her power. Eva comes out, dashes for the spider, and destroys part of it. Blake tries to put it together, but is too distracted to the point where he doesn't notice the scissors from earlier hurtling towards the back of his head. Ava blocks it. At this point, the teacher calls time on their match. She compliments Blake on his creativity, and Ava only just gets a "you run fast." As you can imagine, this disheartens Ava, and she feels like she should have done something more, have been more aggressive in the fight, literally anything. At the end of the chapter, the teacher all but runs from the room after somebody called a benefactor says something to her. Oh, and when they use the color magic on the item, they drain the item of its color, but apparently they can't recolor the items, which is honestly a question that I'd had, because if you drain the color from everything, you think that the world would be a drab, gray place. Chapter 2. Ava rushes outside after her teacher and watches for a second as Celine continues to talk with the benefactor. The two of them take off, but Ava is desperate to talk with Celine. For some reason, Girl can apparently not read the room and gets told off by Celine. However, before Ava can react, several others around her say something about yellow. And Ava explains that this is the color magic equivalent of yelling bomb. People are rushing over towards the window, so Ava goes and sees somebody has written in the sky in bright yellow, "See you soon, Elm." Celine tells everybody to go to the auditorium at once for an emergency meeting. Students crowd every seat on the floor, supporting either red or blue school uniforms. The walls of the room match, each alternating between the two colors. So I know that this is the start of the series, but where are all the other colors? Is this just primary color magic? Does purple magic exist if you combine red and blue? In the auditorium, Celine comes in with two benefactors, and the narration decides to pause to tell us what these people look like. And I'm fine if the story is setting up these characters to be important later, but I feel like the narration is kind of pausing whenever a new character is introduced, to the point where things are becoming insanely clunky, and I'm sensing a pattern here. But these characters are never brought up again in this chapter. The narration paused for no good reason. And it's fine if they become important later, but you could have cut this description out and tacked it on later with the explanation, "I saw the benefactors at the emergency meeting," if them being at the meeting is truly that important. Anyway, after the book finally finishes telling us what these characters look like, Celine holds up a projection of a man. Ava describes what he's wearing as looking like an old-fashioned stage magician. And I get that this is supposed to be the other main character, the Edward Cullen to Ava's Bella Swan. But I literally just finished telling you to stop pausing the narration to introduce every single new character. We've gotten so many characters in less than 2 chapters, and it's hard to tell who's going to be important and who isn't. It's hard to make out details due to the shadow cast from his hat. Nothing quite like showing a grainy security footage and asking if anybody has seen him. Dude could be anybody. Celine explains that the man is Elm Ridley, and he is a rogue mentalist or yellow magic user. She goes on and gives the standard, "If you see something, say something." As a friendly reminder, the color yellow is banned. Yellow clothing, objects, or anything of the sort is strictly forbidden. Sucks to be a blonde in this world, I guess. The benefactors told the students to get back to class, but Ava hangs back because the weirdo she ran into the woods for sure reeks of something odd. But Celine only just asks Ava to make copies of and distribute Elm's wanted poster all over the school. Ava explains that she's a ward of the school, and in exchange for a small allowance she has to do tasks like this. Notably absent in the scene is Ava making literally any attempt to tell Celine or the other adult about running into the strange man. Why do I get the feeling that this is going to turn into one of those dumb young adult tropes where the situation could have been resolved in 5 minutes if the teenager had just talked to an adult? She goes to the supply room but has to wait while another teacher recharges the blue gem that powers the copier. And I gotta say, I hate it when books refuse to mix magic and technology. "Oh, it doesn't work." Shut up. You just don't want Harry Potter to Google this and have the entire situation resolved in less than 5 minutes. Blue magic can be a battery to power technology? It's so simple, yet already putting in more effort than most magic series. Ava tries to ask the teacher about Elm, but he says that he wasn't sure that mentalists even existed anymore. He then rushes out to go to his class, leaving Ava alone to ponder Elm. However, as she stares at his picture, she begins to wonder if it doesn't look a lot like the man she'd met in the woods. But no, it can't be. Can it? The machine notifies me with a cheerful chime that it has finished. I gather the large stack of papers in my arms, flick off the lights, and make sure the door is locked securely. Was this necessary to the continuation of the plot? Eva goes along and plasters the wanted posters everywhere. As she's doing so, she notices way more benefactors around, likely keeping everybody safe. She leaves the building where she notes that Elm's message is gone from the sky, but she says that she can still mentally see it wherever she looks. And then she remembers that she'd forgotten her notebook in the forest earlier. She wants to go back and get it because it has her name in it, and she isn't sure how mentalist powers work. If Elm could get into her mind simply by grabbing her notebook, she weighs the pros and cons. There are likely benefactors patrolling the forest, but if Celine finds out she was practicing magic alone, she could get into trouble. But this is a young adult novel. Our protagonist is 17. I'll give you 3 guesses which option she picks, and the first 2 don't count. She puts flyers up on the trees along the path as she goes as an excuse, but as she gets to the last flyer, she catches a glimpse of something yellow. She turns, but there's nothing there. She shoves the last flyer into her bag and takes off towards the school without her notebook. Chapter 3. Eva, as well as the rest of the class, is restless following the announcement earlier, but they have to get through the rest of the classes for the day, which is literally the worst thing ever. Their class is one where the Reds focus on learning how to use the healing power. However, they have to cut and heal themselves, which naturally makes a bunch of them squeamish. You'd think that they would be used to harming themselves for the sake of their healing class, but whatever. The school's healer, Dr. Iris, stands by it just in case. Every now and then, she nudges her dark glasses up her pointed nose. Was this necessary to the continuation of the plot? The teacher comes by and praises Ava for her already having the knack of the deep healing, which she excuses away by saying she'd practiced with Celine before. He asks that she go over and help another student, Sarah. Sarah is squeamish to be around blood, and I get that blood isn't any fun, but how do you get to be in your senior level healing class without having encountered blood? Why did you go so far in the magic that is known for healing, knowing full well that you'd have to take a healing class? Sarah suggests that maybe she could do it if Ava is the one who cuts her, so Ava does this. However, Sarah accidentally draws the color from her own blood, which prompts Dr. Iris to run over. After the teacher shoos the rest of the class back to their work, Dr. Iris tells Ava that it was a mistake to do the healing lesson today. Too many kids are wound up following the announcement. That night, Ava has a dream about Elm. Upon waking, she convinces herself that this is because she'd been staring at his wanted poster all day yesterday, as well as the start of her bizarre hyperfixation on him that prompted her to find out as much as she could at the library yesterday. Part of the breakfast offerings is eggs, which are described as being gray. Yum. The obsession with their removal over literally anything yellow has made even naturally colored eggs illegal. Although I'm sitting here they literally sell just egg whites in the store. Why do you not just make scrambled egg whites? The logic is a little baffling here. I get things like lemons or butter, but eggs are an easy fix. Ava sits down but is distracted from breakfast when some of the other students begin to talk about Elm. One suggests that he's a demon, which Ava instantly dismisses. Another says that they heard he drives people insane, but mostly people are complaining that they've not canceled classes. Because priorities. Ava doesn't feel like going to her elective class of blue magic application later, but tells the sheriff that her latest hyperfixation is no reason to ditch. Also, the narration tells us that whatever branch of magic isn't exactly chosen by the individual, which sure explains about Sarah's unwillingness and squeamishness. Although, is the study of magic optional in this world? Could she have said, you know what, I'm going to be a tax attorney, and just not studied a line of work that makes her that panicked? So because Ava literally cannot do blue magic, this is an elective course for her. She's taking it in an effort to become more well-rounded so that she can become a benefactor. However, it sounds like this class isn't optional for blue magic users, and Blake is in the class. As Ava sets her stuff down, her bag falls over and the watch she'd broken in the forest in the first chapter slips out. Blake fixes it for her. Ava brings up the test yesterday about how Celine had been impressed with him, but not her. She continues to say that she's not somebody who thinks outside of the box despite being good at magic. Blake tells her not to stress about it. My friends are wondering why you don't come hang out with us anymore. How do I answer that? I remember the last time I joined them, a gaggle of students crammed into Blake's dorm room playing board games. Celine later scolded me for wasting my time and reminded me everyone can be a benefactor. He's your competition. Her warning from the aptitude test flashes through my mind again. I know that this is a school and everybody seems to be working against one another for a tiny handful of actually useful magic jobs, but at the same time, damn, everybody needs friends and everybody needs to be able to have some time to relax and play a game. Ava might not have actual parents, but I see that the makeshift parental figures in this are leaning heavily into the role of toxic and abusive while pretending to be well-meaning. Thanks for listening to my chapter-by-chapter review of Vivid. I'm going to post a new video every day until I run out of chapters. Once I finish with Vivid, I promise to get back to the regular Monday update schedule and resume Fury. Just as a reminder, even if you can't financially support me, there are other ways to help me out. The first is watching this video as well as all my other videos. It's also important to like and subscribe. Finally, you can share this video with all of your friends so that they can help as well. If you're already caught up with all of my videos, you can go to Tumblr for my main book, Snarks, always free and updated every morning. And if you've already read all of my main snarks, you can find even more snark on my Patreon. You can access it for $1 a month. Members also get early access to my main Tumblr snark. Special thanks to Dawn, Phoebe, and Nikki for supporting me on Patreon already. If you want to hear your name in my video next week, either support me on Patreon or make a one-time donation. Do you like my snark so much that you want me to snark your writing? I do that too. For just $6 per chapter, I will tell you how awful that your writing is. But not to worry if you feel like you couldn't take the criticism. I also offer regular book editing as well, just 1 cent per word. You can contact me on any of my social media platforms if you have further questions. If you want to read some of the things that I've written, you can purchase my works on Amazon. I have a slew of erotic short stories and now 2 full-length novels. I also sometimes run flash sales on my stories, and if you don't follow me on any social media, you might want to do that just so you can know when I might be offering more things for free. Links for everything will be posted below. See you tomorrow, guys!